All right, welcome into today's show. So we're changing things up a bit again this week for our listeners. We welcome in Blake Kitchens and Zach Simpkins with Hound Hogs BBQ Supply. Guys, welcome into the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going? Good to be here.
Yeah, man. It's going well. It's going well. Glad you guys are taking some time to be on the show. You guys may actually hold the title for the first barbecue supply company to come on the show. I think last week we had our first SCA competitor come on the show. So we're just continuing this theme of firsts in January. Why not, right?
Yeah, I saw that. He's a good guy.
Very good guy. Very good guy. So let's camp out on Hound Hogs for a minute. And I want to give you guys a second to just, give our listeners the opportunity to connect with you guys. So you guys have a website. What is that website?
It's Hound Hogs BBQ Supply.com, and it's Hound Hogs with like a pig, not Hound Dogs. We get called Hound Dogs at contests a lot of times, but yeah, that's Hound Hogs BBQ Supply.com.
Awesome. And how about social media? What are your handles on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, pretty much everything's at Hound Hogs BBQ. Our YouTube channel's Hound Hogs BBQ. And we don't have a Twitter. I'm not sure what you do with barbecue on Twitter. So,
hey, that makes two of us. I'm still trying to figure it out. We have Twitter, but I don't know what I'm doing. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, take some time if you're listening to the show, connect with these guys. They're great folks. They do a lot for the barbecue community, not just the competitive side. I would say they do a lot for the barbecue community as a whole, whether you're the weekend warrior or whether you're, competing in 3 contests a week. So they do a ton. Support them. They're supporters of our team. They're supporters of a lot of teams on the circuit. So let's dive right in. Let's just jump right into this like we always do. Journey is a big thing. I pretty much talk about journey in every episode, regardless of who's on the show. And it's something that's always fascinated me. I love to learn about people's journey into barbecue, right? Not just competitive barbecue, but just barbecue, right? So let's talk about y'all's journey. I want to talk about 2 parts of that journey. I want to talk about your journey into barbecue, which I know is one component, but then your journey into opening a barbecue supply store, right? So let's camp out on that for a second. Tell us about your barbecue journey, just into barbecue as a whole.
Yeah, so I can remember being in college, and I grew up. My dad, he grilled. He took that red bag of Kingsford and he poured lighter fluid all over it, and he lit it and let it get to burning, and he cooked some steaks. And growing up, I thought there wasn't nobody that could compare with his steaks, and they're still pretty good. But really didn't grow up in a family that took food as kind of like an art or a craft. It was kind of, the same meals week in and week out. You get to college and somebody just gives me an electric master-built smoker, which I think is how a lot of guys' stories start, because it seems like those master-builts get passed around. But just start on that. I think I'd cooked some chicken quarters on it one time, some pork butt, and started to like cooking. And then next thing you know, I got a Weber kettle performer that was a hand-me-down from somebody else. And then I upgrade to a nicer Weber kettle. And then I get the pellet grill, and then I get the Weber Smoky Mountain. And then I got the Hasty Bake and all that. So it just kind of spiraled from there. But I just kind of found a lot of fun. I'm a very social person. And so for me, the best part of cooking is having people over, like for a football game or something like that, and cooking all this food. And then by the time it's there, I'm not even really hungry to eat it anymore, but just sharing it with everybody else and seeing their smiles. So that's kind of how I got into it. I don't think you have that story, right?
No, my story is a little bit different. So like my dad, he wasn't really big into grilling or outdoor cooking when I was growing up. But for me, I kind of have an addictive personality when it comes to like hobbies or things to do. And so, Blake kind of, when he started getting into cooking, he had been talking about doing a competition and had brought it up to me a few times, but I really didn't have any interest in like competing and cooking, just because I didn't really think it'd be fun. But he kind of pushed me and said, you know what, why don't you just cook ribs? And I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. And then of course, once I committed to that, I I had to have all the things. I had to, you know, and so that's kind of my thing is like I really enjoy like gear and tools and the different grills and stuff. And so that's kind of how I got started as far as competition goes. You know, was Blake kind of bugged me until I got in there. And then once we cooked our first competition, it was actually kind of miserable, but it was a good time, like just hanging out together, being there. I think our first competition was the dock. It was in like September, early September or August.
The September 11th weekend.
Yeah.
In Middle Georgia, and we had a tent. We didn't have any air conditioning. We didn't have anything. It was one of the most miserable things I've ever experienced.
But but that's kind of how I got into specifically competition cooking. Well, really just in general, into barbecue. And then what really got me invested is Blake then again convinced me to cook an SCA comp that was piggybacking a barbecue comp, and I got super lucky and got like third on my first comp, and then I was just hooked.
Yep.
You were hooked ever since, right?
That's right.
I love that. So, all right. So it sounds like then basically, you know, Blake got introduced to barbecue many years ago, very similar to a lot of folks that are on the show. Zach, you kind of basically got put in an emotional headlock, so to speak, and just drug along until you submitted, right? and here you are. and now you're hooked. I love that because, you know, I hear both sides of those different stories when we talk about journey. So I always love the difference in how folks get into this. So, all right, so let's camp out on the barbecue supply side of things, right? Because that is a relatively new venture that you guys have taken on. And hey, let's face it, the barbecue supply store is, you know, community is a pretty crowded space, right? So how are you guys separating yourself? How are you guys, you know, standing out amongst the competition? I'm curious to hear what you guys are doing there.
Well, just to kind of tell you how it started.
Yeah, let's start there.
The number one question you get when people figure out you know how to cook is, hey, you should cater. You should start a restaurant. And I know you feel, and I'm not about that life. I want my hobby to still be fun. I want to still be able to enjoy cooking because I enjoy my day job, but I want that to be my release. But what I found was, especially with the YouTube videos and things like that, people would reach out asking questions saying, hey, what seasoning should I do for this? Hey, what should I do for this? What should I do for that? And I was always saying, hey, get this seasoning, get this rub, get this sauce from here, here, here. And then, you know, we just kind of got a wild hair one day, had some money that we could afford to put towards opening a business and decided, hey, let's go in. You know, this will be how we create a business, but we don't have to cook for it. We get to help others cook and still enjoy cooking. So, we started in October of, 2021. We started just in the fourth quarter to go ahead and get the business up and running for the new year. Last year, we had somewhere around 30 teams that we sponsored across mostly the SCA, some KCBS. We've leaned much more heavily this year into the barbecue side because we want to be a well-balanced company. A lot of times you run companies and they're only SCA or they're only KCBS, or at least that's what their primary target market is. We don't like competing that way. We like doing both and being a part of both worlds. And so we want our business to be that. And so we started out with about 50 different products. And in the past just 12 months, we've grown to somewhere around 130 different products in our store. So nearly tripled in size, which in a cash flow business where we don't take on any debt, we pay for everything up front. You know, that's difficult to do. But I think really the big thing that sets us apart that we hear the most is we ship really fast. My work is right up the road from the post office. You know, we got good customer service. We try to respond quickly, and we throw cool stickers in every box. I mean, that's my favorite part.
That's the main.
Cool stickers.
Hey, cool stickers are a big deal in the barbecue, steak, competitive food world, right? Everybody's got to have their stickers.
Yeah, that's right.
And I like just how you touched on, you know, the beginnings of the barbecue supply business. I think you saw a need, you know, you recognized a pattern with people continually asking you, hey, like, what spices are you using? What rubs are you using? Hey, go buy this, go buy that. Wait a minute. Why can't I sell it to them?
Right.
I mean, I love that. I mean, that's very entrepreneurial minded. And so that part's super, super cool. So let's talk about, some of the more advanced stuff, right? So how do you go about separating? I know you mentioned customer service, which I would agree. You guys are very, very communicative, very, have a very quick response time. Um, you know, you, you're good down home folks, right? Like I like to think that, we could probably get together and have an adult beverage, right? And chill out and have a conversation. Like that's important to me. I got to be able to like actually enjoy the company of the people that I'm partnering with, right? So that's kind of important. So you've got that going on for you. You're growing. I mean, you mentioned you tripled in size within a year. So how do you go about, like, how do you really go about making a name for yourself in this crowded competitive world? What are some pointers that you have for, folks out there that are looking to monetize their expertise, whether it be, hey, they want to open up a barbecue supply, or hey, they want to, start generating some revenue with YouTube. Like, I'm curious to hear what your lessons learned have been over that, I guess, about 15, 18-month time frame.
Right. So the biggest thing is you got to make wise decisions, right? Yeah. The way that we've set our business up is such low overhead that we can afford to grind it out until we succeed, right? Mm-hmm. And there's multiple different businesses around us and our friends, and even between us that, we've set up that way. I think as far as setting ourselves apart, especially in barbecue, and more than most other regions, is barbecue is very much about your reputation. When we start talking to these other guys like, hey, what do you think about this store? What do you think about that store? We've run across a lot of people that some of these big stores that have been around for a long time just feel, dejected by them because they heard them make some offhanded comments about backyard teams because they're just, they're not even worth really having at a contest, or, they just feel like maybe because they're not big enough that they're not a valuable customer, right? We want to have a really good reputation in the community. One of the things we did with the Norala guys is we paid for a fish fry. And then we did, hey, donate some money and it's going to go to Wild Child. And we let them pick the Wild Child category just because we wanted to, kind of give back and hang out and get to know some people in that space. So, but as far as growing it, I mean, especially when you talk YouTube or anything that's in the hobby space, you got to grind. It's going to take some time. If you don't have the time and you can't build a business plan that gives you time to succeed, it's going to be hard unless you just get lucky and you hit something that goes viral and just take off. There's those stories, but that's not the average story. It's taken us 2.5 years to get to almost 2,000, followers and finally start making some decent money on YouTube. But it's still not paying for, all of our hobbies and stuff like that. So you gotta have a plan, especially because I know you're CFP. I'm in the financial world too. You got to have a plan that's sustainable, where you can make sure that you can pay your bills, and if you have a bad month, that it doesn't wash you out of the business.
I think that one of the big things is just being patient, right? Because I've seen like a stat here or there about small businesses. It's like, if you're going to do something like this, if you can grind it out for 5 years, then you can usually come up with something that's sustainable. So I think a lot of it, on top of everything that Blake said, is just in general is just being patient. And I'm not a patient guy. Like when I see the potential for something, I want to make it happen then. When I see a problem, I want to fix it then. And that goes back to that wisdom that Blake's talking about. It's not wise to try and rush things like that, because then you have companies that, they either take out a whole bunch of loans or they grow faster than they can, handle. And so as far as the business side of things, for me, it's a lot of what I deal with is being patient. And, as far as standing out from the company, in my opinion, the thing that, away from competition, away from, barbecue or steak, the SCA, KCBS, the thing that I think is going to set us apart, or that I want to set us apart, is the buying experience. And me and Blake have talked about this, you don't have to be a competition cook to appreciate that when you open up a box that you bought, products from a barbecue supply store, and the box has got cool tape on it. You open it up and there's a handwritten card in there, and it says, "Hey man, thanks for your order," or it says something really stupid because I wrote it. And then under that you have a sticker, a different sticker every time, hopefully. And then, you got something other than packing peanuts or bubble wrap in there. And then there's your gift. There's your prize for waiting for your order. And just coming up with different things like that to make the buying experience, the unboxing experience when you do receive your order, making it pleasant, making it something that's kind of, I guess there's really nothing original anymore when it comes to stuff like that, but making it something that's enjoyable.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. I mean, it gets overlooked a lot these days. And obviously in the age that we live in, most people that are buying stuff are buying it online. They're getting it delivered to their front porch. I would say probably 90% of the stuff I buy is online. I don't like going to the store. If I can, certain things obviously you got to go to the store for, but yeah, I think having that, just handwritten note or just something that makes it a little bit more human, builds that connection. I think you're spot on with that. And, it can be a huge game changer. I mean, a lot of folks forget the importance or forget how, a handwritten note, like how that feels when you get one. It's pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, right? So I think that's a great thing to mention and to do as a company as you're growing. And I love what Blake said about making wise decisions and not getting out over your skis, so to speak, where you're growing so fast. I mean, it's easy, especially this social media fueled, quote unquote guru, social media influencer world we live in. Like everybody talks about growth and hustling and grinding, and those are all the buzzwords, right? And we get so wrapped up into this, I got to grow, I got to grow, I got to grow, I got to grow. Yeah, you do have to grow, but like grow smartly, right? Don't grow so much that you just lose control of everything and then you're shut down, right? So I love how you guys brought that up. And here's something I want to camp out on. This is something that I don't think we've ever talked about on the show, but I hear a lot about it, especially on the barbecue team side, right? I hear teams say to me, "Well, I'm hoping to get a sponsorship here. I'm hoping to get sponsored over there." And my first question is, "Well, what have you done for them?"
Right.
Unpopular question, right? Okay, so what have you done for company ABC? Well, I haven't done anything. Okay, so you're expecting them to what what are you expecting them to do? So here's my question, and from your guys' perspective, right? Because I'm sure that you get it a lot. Hey, I'm team XYZ, and we've got a room full of trophies, and then you look at their social media, and they've got 3 followers, right? And it's a little silhouette for their logo on their page, right? It's not even so from your side of things, this is what I want to camp out on. For the barbecue teams, for the steak teams, whatever, if you're in competitive food, this is the segment of the show you want to listen to, because this is where we're going to get into what the barbecue supply, what are you guys, looking for as a sponsor, right? So let's camp out on that. I mean, what are you guys looking for to reach out to a team and say, "Hey, let's talk about a partnership"?
Yeah. So let me just start by telling you what my approach was. And Zach used to laugh at me about this because I picked out 3 sponsors that I wanted. And one of them was before the Barbecue Supply Company. That was Team Arcasipi. So Hottie Toddy Barbecue Crew rubs and All Queued Up rubs. They make up Team Arcasipi. They're big in the SCA. They're trying to work in the barbecue. And then I said, I want a Royal Oak sponsorship. And then I said, I want a Hasty Bake sponsorship. And what I did was I said, well, I'm going to prove my value before I ask for anything. So I started making videos. I bought a Hasty Bake grill before they sent me anything. I made videos teaching people how to use that grill. And when I was doing that, I was using Royal Oak charcoal, and I was tagging Royal Oak charcoal in my post. And then at the beginning of last year, all these companies that I'd wanted to get with, they all said yes, right? And so next thing you know, I've got a big old Legacy showing up at my house. I've got 2 pallets of charcoal showing up at my house. But I've already done some of the work. And so we did applications in our first year, mostly because, we wanted people that were interested. We didn't have any way of saying, do you have a history with the company or not? And we're not doing that anymore, because then you just get a whole bunch of people throwing out applications just hoping to get something free, and people that aren't invested in your company. And then they get mad when you say no. We're picking our people ourselves. We're approaching people ourselves. And so here's what I look for. One, are you engaged in social media? You don't have to be a huge influencer, but are you engaged in social media? Because one of the things, and I talked to Royal Oak guys about this, is like, I don't really care about the 30 people sitting in front of you at awards that you see every weekend. I don't care about those. I care about your 1,500 friends on Facebook who are looking for a place to find better rubs and who see that you can cook and want to cook like you. It's not so much about the awards ceremony. I mean, in KCBS, you don't even get to say anything. In SCA, you do, but at KCBS, just walk up there, get it, take a picture, and move on. And so, we're looking for people that are on social media. The more, the better. I mean, that's why we reached out to you. Somebody had dropped your name in our inbox saying, hey, I think this guy might be a good fit. And you had no history with our company, but we saw your ability to create content, right? And notice, hey, it doesn't have a barbecue supply company partnership. And so we think you'd be a good fit for us. And so we reached out to you, worked out a deal there. But, it's about, are you promoting the company? One of our best teams just has a really good reputation in the barbecue community. They're friends with everybody. They're loved and liked by everybody. And so we are in association with them. Right. They wear our stuff. They put our flag up. They tell people that that's who they're sponsored by. And so that matters to us, right? The biggest thing is, if you're just looking for free stuff, especially in this economy, it's hard to find free stuff. I mean, even a lot of rub companies now, like if you're sponsored by a specific rub, a lot of them aren't even giving free product anymore because they can't foot the bill for it.
Right.
We don't give out free product. We do discounts, right? And some of them are good discounts, right? I mean, it's money back in the competitor's pocket that they would have had to spend elsewhere, so it's worth it. But we're also paying twice as much as the other rub companies are, right? So we have to pay the wholesale price, whereas like All Queued Up, when they give something away, they're paying cost, right? So it's half of what we're paying for it. So, the biggest thing is, if you want a relationship with a company, one, you should believe in the brand. It shouldn't just be you kind of throwing out feelers looking for something free. Put in the work early. Go ahead and show them that you care about the company and that you can provide value. And then if they're a smart company, they'll take advantage of that and they'll partner up with you.
That's good stuff. So I think the message there from Blake, the takeaway there is provide value first. Believe in the company and provide the value first. Like you said, you put in the work, you put in the time, you use the products, you promoted them, and you let the chips fall as they may. And I think that's really, really important, because a lot of people will do it they'll do it the opposite way. They're gonna basically reach out and want to partner without really having done anything, which I think personally is the incorrect approach. But that's just me.
If you're that good, then go for it. Because there are guys that are, right? But the average person, they're not that. I mean, it's not that they're not good competitors or they don't win, but what is the difference in level of influence that they have versus like, if Tuffy Stone never had a relationship with me and he called me and said, hey, I want to be a part of your team, do you think I'd say no?
Right.
But his level of influence is so high that he doesn't have. But for the average Joe, where we're talking 1,500 Facebook friends and some social media posts, and a lot of guys are trying the YouTube thing, but not many guys are really succeeding at it. For that kind of person, you got to just show that you're invested beforehand, that you really believe in the product, right? And here's the thing: I do have some really strong thoughts on sponsorships because I've seen both sides of it. If a company notices you and doesn't ever respond to you, you go 1 year, it's like, okay, well, it's my first year, I get it. Second year, and you're doing it again, they still don't really engage with you or partner up with you. It's okay to try to find something else, but find something you believe in. Right. Don't go pick up, a random charcoal sponsor and then you start using it. It's like, dang, this stuff's hard to use because it's no good, right? Just find something you believe in. It's okay to change if there's no kind of back and forth with the team, because I know sponsorships are cool and fun. but don't just be a sellout, basically.
So there it is. I was going to say, you took the words right out of my mouth. Don't be a sellout. Zach, you had something you were going to add there.
I mean, I was going to say what I feel like we were already saying. It's just, ultimately it goes for pretty much anything. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, or at least that's kind of how it works here. And that I'm not just saying that as far as, if we're looking for a pro staff member, that pro staff member is going to get out of Hound Hogs what they put into Hound Hogs. But also Hound Hogs, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So, if we have a pro staff member who's investing and really, showing that they want to be a part of what it is that we're doing, and we're not reinvesting back into them, then we get out of it what we put into it. And so that's why, even in our conversation, we try to be really transparent with kind of where we're at as a company. But it does go both ways. But as far as specifically for, somebody looking for sponsorships, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And, to go along with the theme, I'm a contrasting example of Blake here, because when I got started in the barbecue, I never really had interest, or even in steak, I never really had interest in like sponsorships, mostly because like I kind of suck at social media, and so like I think the one sponsorship like I wanted for a little while was like the whole Pit Grit Posse thing, and that's just because I thought it sounded really cool, the Pit Grit Posse, and I had the bandana and the cowboy. I thought it was cool, but I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in sponsorships, and so I didn't really pursue those things or put effort into those other companies as far as to become a sponsored member of their team. And I got out of it what I put into it, whereas on the other hand, heavily invested in those companies and it paid off.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Both of you had great points there in terms of, reciprocity and, believing in, the brands that you use and promote. I think you both, hit the nail right on the head. Here's $1 million question. This is something that I, again, very fascinated with. It's not just about the journey, but I also think it's about how do we continue to grow the sport. And if you've listened to any of my podcasts, you would know that I'm very outspoken about the need for cook teams, whether it's SCA, MBN, KCBS, GBA, you name it. I'm really adamant about cook teams as a whole, making our events more public friendly, helping us bring more value to these event promoters and organizers. But I'm curious to hear your take, because I know you guys have competed or do compete. Now you're on the barbecue supply side of things as well. But what needs to be done? And I know there's no magic bullet here. I know there's no one answer that's going to solve everything. But in your mind, what needs to be done to continue to build the sport of competitive barbecue, competitive food, right? What needs to be done in that space to get back to what I would call the glory days? 10 years ago, you had pit masters, you had all these shows. I mean, it was, that I would consider that probably one of the high points of, the competitive food landscape. How do we get back there?
Right. So I've got different opinions on different organizations. I don't really have an opinion on MBN because I've not been a part of it, though I'm interested in trying to talk with some guys about maybe doing one this year. So I won't speak to them. I'll speak to KCBS, the GBC branch of KCBS and SCA. The number one reason why we don't do pro barbecue is because I don't want to spend $300 on a brisket. Here's the thing. They say, well, if you're really good, you can take a prime brisket. And, it's like, okay, but I'm at a disadvantage. If that was the case, then nobody would spend $300 on a brisket. And so, unpopular opinion, I think that the KCBS organization needs to make the brisket category prime grade or less. I think if they took the American Wagyu out of the picture, I think you'd see a lot more guys being willing to spend $80 on a prime brisket and actually go. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to spend $300 on a brisket, and I'm not going to practice with something else and then go compete with something else. So every time I practice, it's $250, $300. So I think there's that. I've heard the People's Choice thing, which I think you've talked about a couple of weeks ago. People's Choice is a great idea. You just got to cast the vision to the cooks as to why you're doing it. because a lot of guys don't want to participate in that. And then as far as the SCA goes, one of the big issues in SCA right now is there's so many contests, which is great for SCA. But that means the pool of people signing up for each contest is being diluted. People got so mad when they raised the price of entry by $10 last year. I mean, this is in the middle of like meat prices skyrocketing, right? But yet they still want the same payouts. They like for our contest for the Georgia State Championship on January 28th, it's going to be, let's see, close to $6,000 in prize money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supposed to make that off of $150 entry fees. I do not believe that a contest should have to have sponsors, corporate sponsors, to be like financially solid.
Right.
I believe that should be a part of it. Just be able to be a contest. Now, I do think sponsors are great, especially if you're supporting a cause, but the contest at its core should not have to have sponsors to pay its bills.
Yep. And
we have to. Like this contest, we would not be able to pull it off if it wasn't for our sponsors. And we're trying to raise money for a veteran organization. Luckily, if we break even, they'll have a big raffle there that'll make them a good bit of money. But our goal is to try to raise them money. And so, you know, there's got to be a give and take somewhere. You can't have low entry fees and high payouts and high cost of meat, right? So on the SCA side, I think the majority of the SCA, I do like that they provide the meat. That makes it equal, but you know, it's just people got to be more understanding about that. This stuff costs money to put on, and it's not just some, you know, it's not some multi-million-dollar corporation that if they lose a couple $1,000 on a contest, like it's no big deal. Like it's going to come out of our pocket if this contest doesn't work out right. So I think, you know, making the playing field a little bit more financially level in the KCBS organization. Because if I can't spend $1,500 a weekend, I'm not going to be able to do pro, you know. I think if we can find a way to balance that out a little bit and then just being reasonable about payouts versus entry fees, right? If you want more payouts, go to contests that cost more to enter, right? I think that'll probably, and, you know, putting people in emotional headlocks until they come on and they learn to compete. Bringing your friends. We got 2 guys that are coming this weekend that have never cooked a steak before that are going to come to the state championship, and I'm going to teach them how to do everything that we do and let them turn in. So that kind of stuff is like.
How about you, Zach? What say you?
I mean, I, as far as the, you know, financial investment that comes with like putting on a competition, entry fees and whatnot, when it comes, you know, me and Blake are on the same page there. You know, I think that, you know, as far as barbecue in general, I think one of the bigger things that is going to grow the barbecue community is something that we haven't talked about. And that's just, and I'm not talking about this as a competition category. I'm talking about just average backyard cooks, right? People that aren't competing right now, that have no interest in competing like I was, you know, and are doing things like watching, you know, Hound Hogs BBQ on YouTube, just trying to figure out how to, you know, cook some wings up for the 4th of July. You know, and I think that it's those types of things that are going to grow a passion for barbecue, right? Where it's not necessarily a financial investment, but it's something that you can take back to your friends, take back to your family. And then as that passion grows, you know, naturally we become a little bit competitive. You know, and so I think that's kind of the foundation that kind of needs to be invested in a little bit more, is just people who are just cooking at home. Like they're probably not going to go out and buy an HP 250. They're probably not going to go out and buy a Legacy. And I say that as, you know, those are Blake's a sponsor, but they're more than likely just going to go out and they're going to buy a Weber kettle and they're going to want to know how to do a bunch of different things on it. So I think the more that we can invest in just the average person that's not trying to compete, the more you'll grow the passion for barbecue and get back to those glory days. And the more you'll have people try and get involved in some of these organizations that, you know, have competition steak and competition barbecue.
That's a great take on it. I mean, you guys made some good points that I hadn't even considered myself, but I love the perspective on it. And at the end of the day, it's our job. It's part of our role. It's part of our obligation, our duty, if you will, as barbecue, steak, food enthusiasts, right? Fill in the blank. I mean, it's not just barbecue. I think it's anyone that's passionate about competing and about food. It's all about people. It's about people, right? I mean, when you're cooking all this food, you're not cooking it for you. You're cooking it for other people. So I think we need to get back to that. Make it about the people. Love what you said, Blake, about restricting it to just prime. Of course, I'm sure there's a couple companies that probably would hate that idea. But I love that idea. Because I agree with you. I love cooking brisket. Not a huge fan of cooking $300 brisket, but as you pointed out, if you don't, you're pretty much starting off, they're starting off on the 10-yard line and you're starting off on your 10-yard line. You know what I mean? So you're starting off at a disadvantage, but some great points there. And normally what I would do as we wind down the show is I would talk about an easy at-home recipe for folks, but I don't want to ruin the surprise because I want our listeners to go check out the YouTube channel that you guys have, because there's tons of great recipes on there that they can check out. Hound Hogs BBQ Supply on YouTube, Hound Hogs BBQ Supply.com. That's where you can order all the great rubs these guys have. And on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they're all over social media. They're consistent. They're consistent. Check them out at Hound Hogs BBQ Supply. Zach, Blake, man, great conversation. We could probably talk for another hour. But I know you guys have some things you got to take care of this evening, as do I. So again, we appreciate y'all being on the show. This has been an awesome conversation.
All right. Thanks for having us on, Kurt.
Thanks.